help me out when I want something special. When I was first asked to do a facial, I said no. And I thought in saying that. After all, you've already heard from me. Last fall during the stewardship campaign, I talked to you about the joy of giving. I even taught you a song to the tune of Jingle Bells. Remember? J-O-Y, that must surely mean Jesus first, yourself last, and others in between. And then on Christmas Day, I shared why I thought small groups were important. And I encourage you to sign up for a new Unbinding series to learn more about intentional prayer. I was convinced you'd heard enough from me. Well, after I said no and I was busy around the house doing laundry, putting dishes away, whatever, I had these ideas began swirling. And by the end of the day, I had an outline with key points forming in my head, and I just threw up my hands and said, okay, God, I get the message. I'll call Beth and say yes. So here I am, and I hope I have something of value to share with you today. I was born on January 23rd, 1946. And after the usual week stay in the hospital, my mom and I were released. But because we lived about 30 miles away, and evidently cars back then didn't have reliable heaters, so I came home in an ambulance to keep me warm. I guess God knew even then I hate the cold. That was my first journey. My faith journey began a little bit later. I was baptized as an infant in the Newtown Presbyterian Church. Now, I didn't have much to do with that, but it is important because it tells you I was raised in a Christian home. I learned early to thank God for our blessings. And living on a farm, you were always thankful for a good harvest. And the beauty of nature was always around us, in the fields and the trees, my grandma's flowers next door. So I knew that life was good. I had many good childhood memories of going to church, but one of my earliest ones, I think, is when I was about 6, and my favorite doll was going to be used in a Christmas pageant as baby Jesus. I remember wrapping that doll tightly and placing her in the cradle right before the Christmas pageant, and I knew I was part of retelling a special story. Well, as I grew up, I continued going to church, and I learned the books of the Bible, but unlike Nancy Frank, I don't still know them. See what you learn about others in small groups. I continued going to Sunday school, but the best part of church was Vacation Bible School. I remember lining up outside the church and singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers" as we marched into the sanctuary. Inside, there was a wonderful lady that would tell us Bible stories. And her voice was full of expression, and she used final board cutouts and puppets, just anything she could find to make sure those Bible stories came to life for us. She would tell them year after year, just to make sure we really knew those stories. I went to camps, made my confession of faith, joined the church, and knew life was good. I could feel the light of the Lord. When I went to Purdue, I wanted to continue going to church, but I didn't like any of the church campuses. Or I'm sorry, campus churches, whatever. Then a friend asked me to go to church with her in downtown Lafayette. And that was my first experience with Christian church. Disciples of Christ. I loved it. I got to hear great and often humorous sermons from Reverend Joe Wick. Now that's a name some of you might recognize from the Peru Rabbit Suppers. He is a great man, was a great man. Some of you may recognize, I also was introduced at that church for weekly communion, because in the Presbyterian church, and like others, you had it once a quarter, and I really liked weekly communion. It just made sense to me. I knew life was good, and the light continued to shine. Well, after I graduated in 1968, I came to Wabash for my first teaching job. I lived at Avalon Village, and that's where I met John. We started dating, and he asked me to come to church. Another Christian church. We didn't go to Sunday school, but there was a group of people from the home builders class that kind of took us under their wings and would talk to us after church and encourage us. And they even included us in special parties like Christmas and Valentine's Day. Thanks to great people like Susie and Walter Kent, Ursula and Tom Hudson, Doris and Fred Sunday, June Ellen and Dave Soderdick, and the Denny's. I learned why small groups are important part of church life. The fellowship and fun just can't be beat. So I want to thank those of you who are still with us today for helping me on my journey. John and I were married in 1971. We weren't married in this church, but we did have Reverend Ken Brady officiate in the Newtown Church. I wanted to become a member of the Wabash Christian Church, but at that time, infant baptism wasn't recognized, so I was baptized by immersion. John and I started going to a Sunday school class called Come Doubles. There were probably 8